Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Sunday, January 5th. We're going to take a look at 4 stocks that I'm watching right now, and I think that they have a potential for a big January. Now, that's WIMI, TLRY, Lucid, and QS. We're going to go in that order, and I'm going to talk about each setup and go from there. So WIMI has obviously had a big push already, right? This candle here, which was at the end of December, shot up over 77%, and then another 4% the following day on the 30th, and then December 31st, it started to pull back, and we've seen that pullback for every day in January so far. Now, it is coming to some pretty interesting levels. You can see the levels that I have here on the chart. The nearest in level, 165, and then 139, and so on and so forth. What I'm actually watching is not necessarily these levels, for the moment at least. What I'm looking at is this EMA setup. So here we see, let's just work from the ground up. So the 183 EMA down here, it's this gray one, that is my long-term EMA that I watch. And that one right now is situated down under $1. That's not the important piece. The important piece is the price action right now has recently gotten over that, thus giving it potential for a trend reversal, right, from a previous bearish trend, as it was trapped mostly under that. You can barely see it there, but there it is, trapped under that long-term EMA, and it had spent a long time previously, just sort of brushing it off, right, trying to make a break and brushing it off. So will this be another brush off? That was a pretty good attempt too. That one doesn't look so dissimilar from what we're seeing right now, right? This push right here looks sort of similar to what we see right here, but that doesn't mean that it has to play out exactly the same way. So that's why I'm watching it. I'm not in it yet. But that to me is ultra important, that it's over that. And then these short-term EMAs, the red 34, the peach 21, and the white 8 are in a fully bullish formation at the moment. So all the EMAs in a bullish formation, the price having gotten far away from all of the EMAs, and what I always look for when that happens is I look for the price action to reintegrate, to make contact once again with the EMAs, and it's doing that right now, which is why I am like watching it and seeing if it's going to have another rush of bullish momentum, and if so, that's when I will decide to take my position. Now, what I'm looking for is for it to ride this 8, to bounce off of this 8. If it comes down and presses the 21, it's not the end of the world, but it's probably not the setup that I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that shouts out, hey, we have a lot of bullish momentum left to exhaust, and we haven't done it yet, and so we're going to push more. And so, an indication for me on that would be seeing it bounce nice and strong off of this 8. Not really wrestle with it too much, not, like I said, dip below and need to press toward that 21, but I'm really looking for a ride or a recapturing of that 8, and then it's starting to lift and drag all these EMAs up even further with the price action. So, it's sort of like you got to catch it the moment it's happening, but if you can, that's what I'm looking for. The way in which this setup would go bust for me, like I said, even probably a motion toward the 21, I would not watch it as closely. Maybe I'd check in on it every once in a while to see if it sort of like bounces really strongly off of that 21 and comes back up over the 8 and shows a lot of bullish strength. But certainly if we get a crossover, the 8 crossing over the 21, absolutely if we get the 8 crossing over the 34, yeah, to me this setup would be bust, and I would not be interested anymore. The other thing to just sort of note, and I think this is the same with all or most of these stocks, TTM squeeze indicator, you see this red period here, so that's a lengthy trigger period that it put in as it was getting a little bit juicy here, right? It had a little bit of jumpiness, but then when it fired, then it got that really strong push up. So I'm interested to see if there's more juice left in the squeeze from that TTM squeeze, trigger, and fire. That would be interesting to me. Now, skipping over to TLRY. TLRY has a little bit of a different setup, but similar qualities. So this is actually a setup that I prefer versus the WIMI setup. It's under the 183 EMA, and it now has the short-term EMAs starting to cross over in a bullish fashion. So we have the 8, the short-term EMA has crossed over the 21. That's the first bullish crossover. The 8 has now crossed over the 34, the red EMA. That's the second bullish crossover. And the price action is situated above the 8 and showing ride potential. Now, what I'm looking for here is for these bullish crossovers to continue. So the 21 crossing over the 34, so that peach crossing over the red, and then all of the short terms would be in a bullish formation. It would go white, peach, red. And that should then, if that crosses over, that means that the price action is moving in a way that it's drawing nearer to this gray 183 EMA, which is up at 166 right now. That crossover right there of the short terms would probably be enough for me to say, okay, I'm interested in getting in. And then I want to see what it does when it hits the 183. So if we get a strong rejection off the 183, that might be a moment where I either trim my position or just exit it altogether and say, okay, that was the little move, right? The move to the 183, but it's not going to be able to make it over. If we get some more stickiness on the 183, or if we get some motion through it, then I would continue to hold my position. Now, if this price action comes down and it can't hold this 8, this white EMA crosses back below the 34, the 21, yeah, to me then the setup is bust. It's not going to work out and I'm not going to play it. But if that doesn't happen and the other thing does, like I just described, that's when I would get in, when I see this additional bullish crossover, and that's when I would sort of make decision points on, okay, as it approaches the 183 here, when do these start to flip? I'm always looking for the bullish crossovers to get in, and I'm looking for the bearish crossovers to get out. So if the bearish crossover happens before all of the bullish crossovers happen, then that's when the setup is bust and I just don't get in. But I don't mind the price action being under the 183 and me getting in as it's approaching it based off of the short-term EMAs getting into bullish formation. That gives you a little better opportunity to catch, more of the move, and still gives you a good opportunity to say, if these short-term EMAs, say the price action comes up here and I'm in because all of these bullish crossovers happen, and then the price starts to come down and the 8 crosses over the 21, then most likely I'm out. It's hard to say, sort of just imagining it, but likely that first bearish crossover on the short-term EMAs, especially if the price action is under the 183, most likely that is my trigger point of, I'm out. And then certainly if it is able to make the 183, then it gives you just a really clear, clean opportunity to say, okay, what is it doing as it hits the 183? It's not so often that it just flies through the 183. I would say more often than not, at least the setups that I'm looking at, like I'm describing here, there is something that happens at the 183. And sometimes it's sort of like WIMI, where, it pushes, it struggles with it for a long time, and it pushes off of it, and then it comes back down, and it didn't do an exact reconfirmation of the 183, but it was darn close. The wick of this candle is darn close to that 183, and then it pressed off of it again, and then you see it ride off of the 8 there. Right, this setup is quite different because it's not wrestling with the 183 right now, it's approaching it. So that's where I would expect, like here's a clear point where it was trying to move up. It had some bullish crossovers there, not as convincing as this bullish crossover could be, but it pushed off of, that near miss of the 183. Again, near miss, right? You see, as it approaches the 183, even here, right? Here's where you get the push through, but it can't really get legs away from it, right? It keeps getting drawn back toward it, and then it gets sucked right back down under. And so you see all of this activity, and it looks different from approach to approach, but you see sort of a theme here, right? It has a hard time holding the 183. My question is, it being down where it is right now, are the buyers there, and are the buyers willing to come in and continue to push it to and through that 183. Maybe not. Maybe it ends up shirking off, but at least I know what I'm looking for in order to get out. That is probably the most important thing of getting into a trade, of saying, how do I know when I should be getting out? And once you know that, then the most important thing is doing it. Don't just stick in there because you missed it or something like that. Okay, so Lucid, pretty similar. Bullish formation is here. I've been watching Lucid on and off for a while. Because it's been such a tragic downturn for such a long period of time, I'm feeling like I want this one to prove itself a little bit more to me. I know you could kind of say the same around about TLRY, but I just happened to catch TLRY a little earlier in the swing at the moment, so I'm okay with that. And also a little bit different, you see the setup on TLRY here, you see no gaps in this area here. Lucid has this gap right here, and so it has come up and filled that gap. And so that's another reason that I'm sort of wondering, okay, do we just come up and get a gap fill here? It just so happens that where it is at the moment, that gap fill price action aligns really concretely with the 183 EMA. And so what I'm looking for here is, what is it doing with this 183 EMA? Can we get to this 8 to cross over? Can we get that initial bullish crossover of a short-term EMA through the long-term EMA? If so, that likely becomes my signal to get in, or at least sort of dip my toe in. The 21 and the 34 are pretty far behind at the moment. I wish that they were a little tighter, to be honest, that the short terms are a little tighter on this approach to the 183. And who knows, maybe it waffles around here a little bit longer and it gives them an opportunity to catch up. Because what I would like to see is the 821 sort of crash through that 183 relatively in a relatively tight time frame, whereas this looks to me like this could, the 8 could come above the 183 and it could look good, and then as the 21 approaches the 183, it could crash it. I don't know that that's what would happen, but that's my only concern about this setup right now, and the distance between the 8 and the 21. I wish that the 8 and the 21 were sort of closer to being as tight as the 21 and the 34. They're not, so we have what we have. But I'm interested to see, can it continue to hold on the 183? If so, do we start to get these bullish crossovers of the short-term EMAs above the long-term EMAs? If that happens, that's my signal to get in, and then sort of ride that until we get bearish crossovers of the short-term EMAs. If it can't get bullish crossovers of the short-term EMAs, then the setup is bust. It sort of got itself to the 183, which it did back here as well, and had a spectacular failure. So that could certainly happen, right? So is it another spectacular failure, or is there something more that could take shape here and we could get a bigger boost? That's what I'm looking for. You see, one of the big differences from this run here, sort of double run, however you want to look at it, is you look down here at the volume, it was really just a fraction of the current volume here, right? You have big volume coming in down here around the 2, like in the 2s, and then it's just persisted up now to the 3s. And so that's a significant difference to me. That's a pretty critical and important difference to me. And so that's it gives me more of a thought that there could be some potential there for an interesting move, or for a longer lasting move. And so bullish crossovers, that's what I'm looking for to get in. Bearish crossovers, what I'm looking for to either get out if I do get in, or say that setup was a bust. QS, sort of similar, but we see it's not as I wanted to say it's not as powerful of a move as Lucid, but that's only because Lucid was starting from so far below, right? Lucid started with the distance between the 183 and the price action was this. QS's distance is just this, right? So it's not nearly as deep. But again, we see dying volume down here, and then we see a brief bump in volume that got it up over the 183 for a couple of days back in October. Couldn't hold it, and it's back at the 183 now, but we do see a more sustained block of volume, and so that's pretty interesting to me. And we do have right now the short-term EMAs, the 8, 21, and 34, totally in a bullish formation at the moment. All of those crossovers have happened. Now the question is, what happens at the 183? You know, it sort of burped itself above it, fell back through, but it did catch support off of the 34 EMA down here, and now is once again trying to push off of the 8 to get itself through the 183. So sort of first half of this coming week is going to be pretty interesting to see what it does with this 183. Does it continue to sort of waffle with it? And if so, what do these short-term EMAs do? Can we get those crossing over the 183? Bullish crossovers of the short-term EMAs through the long-term EMAs is my sort of signal to get in. If we don't get that and the price just continues to reject off of or just sort of convalesces along the 183 EMA and then, you know, either sort of slow bleeds down or rejects hard off of it and we get a bearish crossover, or we get an inability of those short-term EMAs to cross over the 183, that's when I say, yeah, the setup is a bust. It's not going to work. I'm not going to get in. So again, bullish crossovers of the short-term EMAs above the long-term EMA, that's what I'm looking for to get in. If I am in, then I'm just looking for short-term bearish crossovers. So if the 8 crosses below the 21, you know, let's pretend the price action's up here, right? The 8 crosses below the 21. It's hard to say for certain because it's in my imagination, but most likely that would signal that would be my signal to get out, or at least to trim, right? If there's something that's sort of significance that's saying don't fully get out, lock in some profit and see if X happens. Probably X is, does the 8 cross below the 34, or does the price action dip below the 34 EMA? That's probably what that if is. And then I would trim the rest of the position and lock in slightly less profit than if I had taken it at the top. But you cannot, like a trap you're going to get trapped in for certain in trading is if you're expecting yourself to always catch the bottom and always sell at the top. It's a losing game. Try to catch as much of the move as you can when it presents itself. So don't chase, don't bag hold, you know, get out when you need to. Try to keep the losses small, try to keep the wins a bit bigger, and you'll play for a long time. So that's sort of my exit strategy if it gets up there. And again, I'm not in, so I would not get in if these crossovers don't happen. So if we don't get the 8 crossing over the 183, I'm not getting in. And yeah, if these just sort of bunch up and this sort of fizzles out, then that wouldn't happen anyway. So yeah, it's basically as simple as that. The whole thing is bust if those crossovers don't happen. All right, folks. Well, I hope that your upcoming trading week goes well. And I guess this was a month of January video, so we could just say I hope that your trading month goes well and gets you off to a good start in 2025. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.